The shocking reason the Apostle Philip followed the Holy Spirit into the desert at midnight. The moon hung low, casting a silver glow over the burning sands. It was here, under a blanket of stars, that Apostle Philip felt something stir deep within him. It felt strange, almost unnatural. Like a whisper in the dark, tugging at his spirit. He glanced around, heart pounding. What was drawing him into the desert? What awaited him in the eerie silence of the night? A fierce wind howled, raising dust devils that danced around him. Shadows loomed, mocking thoughts flared, and the chill of foreboding wrapped tightly around his core. As he moved, each step felt heavy, as if the ground itself resisted him. His breath came in shallow gasps. Philip could see it now, the shimmering outline of a figure ahead. Was it real, or just a trick of the mind? The whispers grew louder, coiling around him, igniting that primal fear deep inside. It was as if the very air crackled with mystery. The desert had secrets, and somehow, he knew he was meant to uncover them. Whispers that echoed tales of divine journeys and ancient prophecies tangled in his thoughts. He pressed on, driven by an unseen force. Then, a cloud of darkness swept over him. A sudden silence hung in the air, uncanny and suffocating. It wasn't just the lack of sound, it was a feeling, almost tangible. Goosebumps erupted on his skin. He strained to hear, but only a heartbeat thudded in his chest. What was this foreboding knowledge? Was it danger lurking, or something far more profound? This was no ordinary night. The desert was alive, and it demanded attention. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With the unease growing, he felt a swell of courage, almost as if the Holy Spirit was urging him forward. The air shifted, charged with energy as he approached the figure. His heart raced, and for the first time, he sensed urgency, a call to act. But what was waiting on the other side? As he neared, an overwhelming light engulfed him. Philip's heart thundered as swirling visions flashed before his eyes. Was this revelation or madness? It felt like the answer to every prayer and every fear all at once. The question loomed heavy: if he kept going, what truth would he face? Would it change everything he believed, or would it seal his fate forever? The night was only beginning. The light swallowed Philip whole, and for a heartbeat, he felt weightless. It was as if he had crossed beyond the limits of time and space. Visions rushed past him, flickering images of ancient cities, of men in robes preaching, and of desperate crowds clutching at their hearts. Each flash struck like lightning, leaving trails of intuition, each louder than the last. The whispers that had followed him became a cacophony, urging him to understand, to remember. As quickly as it began, the light dimmed. Philip landed hard on the ground, coughing as the sand scratched at his throat. He blinked, trying to process the chaotic memory, a memory that didn't just feel real, it felt like destiny. What had he just glimpsed? Was it a prophecy? A call for help? The resonance of fear flickered at the edges of his consciousness. Surrounded by the silence that had returned, he scrambled to his feet. Flashing images of the past clung to him, raw and vivid. As he steadied himself, he turned to look for the figure that had drawn him there, but it was gone. Had it been a mirage? Or perhaps a test? The desert felt thicker now, as if it were settling around him, suffocating his thoughts. Suddenly, a rustle cut through the stillness. Philip spun on his heel, squinting into the shadows. Before him stood a man, face obscured beneath a hood. Fear gripped Philip, but curiosity sparked, urging him closer. "Who are you?" He managed to croak, his voice barely a whisper against the haunting backdrop. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face lined with wisdom, a face that seemed to glow with divine light, even in the darkness. "I am a sentinel," the man spoke, his voice deep and melodic, resonating within the still air. "I guard the secrets the world has forgotten, waiting for one who is worthy." Philip's heart pounded. "Worthy? What do you mean?" "I'm just a man chosen to follow the Holy Spirit." The sentinel's eyes narrowed, piercing right through Philip's pretense. "Many are called, few are chosen. What was shown to you the visions will soon unfold. But know this, they are not for the faint-hearted. You are on a path riddled with trials and revelations that could alter everything you hold dear." The weight of those words hung in the air, thick like the sand swirling at their feet. Philip felt sweat bead on his brow, realizing that the ease he once held in faith could easily slip from his grasp. "What must I do?" he asked, his voice more resolute despite the dread curling in his gut. "You must follow the thread of truth," the sentinel replied, his tone somber. "Seek the place where your visions converge. Beware, for not all who guide you will have pure intentions. The darkness wears many faces, and it aims to ensnare you before the dawn." Before Philip could respond, the figure faded into the night as if he had never been there at all. The moon hung heavy overhead, casting eerie shadows, distorting the landscape into a mosaic of confusion and fear. Alone with his thoughts, Philip struggled to recall every detail, every flash from the light that had come to him. As he turned away from the spot where the sentinel had stood, a thundering sound echoed in the distance, shaking the very ground beneath him. Something was approaching, he could feel it. With each pulsing tremor, dread filled his chest. What was coming for him? Would he uncover the truth, or would he fall victim to the lurking darkness? The night was far from over. Philip's heart raced as he strained to grasp what the thundering noise meant. Adrenaline surged through his veins, urging him to run, while curiosity tugged him to the source. He took a step forward, the shifting sands gripping at his feet like the fingers of the unknown, trying to pull him away from the path he was meant to follow. The sound grew louder, a booming march that echoed through the stillness, sending a shiver down his spine. It wasn't just the earth trembling, it felt like a proclamation of something sinister approaching. As he looked around for shelter, a glimmer caught his eye in the corner of his vision. It flickered under the moonlight, a fleeting glimpse of something metallic, yet graceful. Before he could process it, the object materialized. A caravan of figures cloaked in dark fabric emerged from the horizon. Shadows poured out like a flood, forming an ominous silhouette against the desert landscape. No longer curious, fear set in. Philip's instinct screamed at him to hide, but he was rooted in place, awareness clawing at him. "Philip!" The voice split through the air like glass shattering. He turned, breath quickening as a woman approached, her face eerily familiar. "You have to run. They're here for you." "It's too late," a low growl echoed, chilling Philip to his core. One of the dark figures had stepped forward, revealing a visage twisted with malice, eyes void of humanity, and a smile that seemed to stretch too wide, far too wide. "You wandered in the desert, boy. That alone marks you," the ominous stranger hissed. "Who are you?" Philip demanded, gathering what remained of his courage. "Your seekers," the figure replied, contempt dripping from every word. "You think you can escape your destiny? You are led by whispers. Do you think they are here to save you?" The woman reached for Philip's arm, her grip tight and electric. "Trust me," she urged. "I can help you." "No." The dark figure roared, the word resonating as a thunderclap against the stillness. The caravan moved closer, encircling them, the figures shifting like smoke. Philip's skin prickled, a warning of the danger drawing near. "The darkness has many faces, yet they all serve one master," she whispered, urgency suffusing her voice. All around, sand swirled like a rising storm, thick with dread. Philip's heart thumped furiously in his chest. He looked at the woman. Did he trust her? Was her desire to help genuine, or was she another pawn in this game of shadows? A sudden lurch in the ground made him stumble, and in that moment of chaos, Philip heard the whispers again, softer now like a gentle beckoning. Seek the truth, find where the visions converge. The sentinel's words echoed in his mind. Which way? He shouted, fighting against the noise, against the thundering hooves closing in. Where do I go? Follow me, she exclaimed, her eyes urgently pleading. But before he could move, a strong hand settled on his shoulder, anointing his resolve with icy dread. No one escapes, Philip, the figure warned, drawling each syllable like venom. You're already ours. He felt a surge of despair. Was this it? Would he lose everything before even knowing what he was meant to fight for? The caravan shifted closer, and Philip felt the shadows closing in, creeping like a fog that threatened to choke the light. With a sudden impulse, he pulled free from the woman's grasp and faced the dark figure, denying the fear raking his insides. I will not be a pawn, he yelled, taking a step forward. At that moment, the ground shook violently, and the air exploded, ripping through the night. Light flashed in a blinding arc as a sudden storm broke overhead. Was this a chance for salvation or a final trap? A choice lay before him: ignore the ravenous darkness surrounding him or plunge into the chaos that wrapped the world like a shroud. The thunder rolled as the storm raged, revealing shadows that danced dangerously close. The very air seemed to whisper, who would stand, and who would fall? And in the tempest's heart, destiny awaited. The thunderclap broke Philip's defiance like a twig, and in an instant, darkness and light collided around him. The storm transformed the landscape, turning familiar sands into an unforgiving battleground. Everything blurred, the figures, the woman, the shadows. They swirled into an indistinct chaos. Run! Her voice pierced through the roar, desperate and unyielding. Philip barely registered her next movement, but her hand found his again, pulling him away from the encroaching dread. He stumbled after her, feet slipping against unsettled ground. His mind raced, fighting to reorder the chaos. But where are we going? The question felt futile, yet essential. Where the whispers collide. She shouted, though the uncertainty in her eyes hinted at a truth she wasn't fully revealing. Philip's heart pounded in response, a chaotic drum echoing the pulsing dread around him. Ahead, the darkness thickened, a force of its own. The dark figures had regrouped, reforming a wall like nightfall that threatened to crush him. He glanced back at them, their masks now gleaming with bizarre hints of starlight, as if the shadows drew power from the storm itself. Philip! One of the figures rasped, their voice curling like smoke around his senses. You cannot run from your fate. We own this night. Are you sure you want to keep running? The woman questioned, her breath shaky. We have to take a stand. A lurch of instinct urged him to turn. The caravan was gaining ground, their pace a relentless rhythm of doom. What do you mean take a stand? Philip asked, faltering in his resolve. Sometimes standing firm is the only way to reclaim your life. The word settled heavily on him like the weight of the world crashing down. Suddenly, it clicked. The sentinel's whispers, were they guiding him to confront this very nightmare? A flicker of fearless rage ignited within him. He whipped around, a surge of clarity rushing through his veins. What do I need to do? Face them. Show them who you are. She urged, her voice climbing with his rising spirit. The dark figures coiled around, their outlines twisting like the storm's furious winds, yet their shadows were closing. Philip inhaled deeply, steel emerging in his spine. I will not be your pawn. I have a choice. The storm stilled, as if every creature in the desert paused to witness this unfolding moment. Philip's voice rang out even against the cacophony, resonating defiantly. What do you seek? One of the dark figures hissed, curiosity laced with disdain. Power. Purpose. You will find none here. Maybe, he replied, ground firm beneath his feet. But you'll never take my will. As the words hung thick in the air, a rift cracked open in the storm. A blinding light poured through, illuminating the figure's grotesque forms, casting long, splintering shadows across the ground. Philip felt a pull, a deeper yearning directed toward the light. Now! The woman cried, seizing the moment. They sprinted towards the radiance, making their way through a veil of darkness that shifted threateningly. But as they drew closer, the shadows began to writhe, yearning to grasp them both. "Don't lose hope," she yelled back, face illuminated with fierce determination, and then Philip heard it again, that familiar whisper, "Seek the truth." The light was almost within reach, yet something sinister pulsed beneath the surface. Would the truth truly bring salvation? Or would it shatter the very foundation of his existence? As they neared the threshold of illumination, a sudden reality crashed down upon him, revealing a malevolent secret that loomed, waiting to tear them apart. Would he emerge reborn, or would he and the woman be swallowed forever in the inexplicable chaos of the storm? With every step, the dance between life and death teetered on a razor's edge. The moment they plunged forward into that blinding light, the air around them exploded with energy. It felt as if time itself had stopped, every heartbeat resonating like thunder. Philip squinted against the brilliance, desperately looking for shelter in the sudden burst of illumination. But there was no escape, only the light, relentless and unforgiving. The figures in the darkness seemed diminished against its intensity, their eerie forms wavering like smoke. "Keep moving," the woman urged, her voice barely audible above the tempest that still roared around them. He could see the fear in her eyes, and it ignited something deep within him. They were in this together. Together, they could face whatever lay ahead. As they pushed through the brilliant veil, Philip felt a sharp jolt, like icy fingers gripping his heart. Memories flashed in that moment, a childhood full of laughter, shadows lurking just outside gleaming memories, and a flickering sense of dread that lingered long after. Had he been running from something greater than the dark figures? Was it the very truth that had led him to this desert? Without thinking, he clutched the woman's hand tighter, their fingers interlocking with a desperate urgency. What if it isn't salvation we're running towards? He yelled, half to himself. What if it's the truth that destroys us? She shot him a look, her eyes darting between his fierce gaze and the light ahead. If it is, then we will fight through it. The truth hurts, but it also heals. Don't you want to know what they've hidden from you? A shockwave of resolve pulsed through him. He had spent too long hiding from what the shadows represented. In a heartbeat, the light flickered. Just as quickly, reality twisted grotesquely, shifting into a realm of color and shadow. A strange stillness enveloped them, the whirlwind of chaos seemed to hang on pause. Surrounded by this dizzying array of warped figures and flickering memories, Philip noticed a silhouette lurking just beyond the light's embrace. "Welcome," a voice purred, honeyed but dripping with malice. It was one of the dark figures, stepping forward into the glow, revealing features he knew all too well. "Philip, you've come so far. But are you ready for the weight of what you seek?" Philip's breath hitched. The figure's visage twisted into a mockery of his own. Its eyes glinted with malevolence, echoing his deepest fears and regrets. "You cannot escape what is inside of you. It will all come rushing back." In an instant, the landscape shifted again, the brilliance fading to shadows, replaced by memories, the laughter of a boy who had lost everything, the quivering hesitance of a youth consumed by uncertainty. His chest tightened with each image, his past clenching like a vice. "Stop!" he shouted, feeling the suffocating grip of self-doubt settle over him. "I will not be defined by what I used to be." The figure's laughter was a haunting melody, twisting with dark pleasure. "And yet, that's exactly what you are. A reflection of the shadows that haunt you. Do you think you can sever the strings of fate?" The woman tightened her grip. "You're stronger than this. Don't let it trap you again." With every ounce of will, Philip drew upon the light deep within him. "I choose who I am." It echoed like a defining resolution against the fading shadows. Yet as the light surged, so did the darkness, the whispers growing louder, clawing at his mind, reminding him of the truths he had buried. Would he break free from their grasp, or would he find himself ensnared, lost amid the wreckage of his past? And what of the woman by his side? Would she stand with him, or would the darkness claim her too, as the storm resumed, whipping through the terrain like a ravenous beast, the true nature of the battle ahead unfurled ominously. In that moment, the question lingered painfully: what truths would he have to confront to finally reclaim the narrative of his own life? The darkness coiled around them, thick and palpable, as Philip felt the surge of that inner light flicker. It was as if his soul was at war, fighting against the shadows that clawed at his resolve. The laughter of the figure echoed in his head, a sinister reminder of all that he had ever tried to escape. "Focus," the woman urged, her voice breaking through the chaos. "Don't let it take you back." He turned to her, seeing her determination framed by the dim light. For a moment, that resolve anchored him, but the figure's taunting laughter wrapped around him like chains. "You think she can save you? Look closer, Philip. Your weakness is in your trust." The words twisted like a knife, digging into the very core of his being. His heart raced, memories flooding back times he had put faith in people only to be betrayed, only to find himself alone. "No!" he shouted into the void. "That's not who I am anymore." The shadows danced, mocking him. Yet as he strained against the tide, he felt the warmth of the woman's hand squeezing his tighter. "Wake up," she commanded, her voice fierce and unyielding. "You are not those memories. They do not own you." In that moment, he realized. The battle before him wasn't about defeating monsters or shadows. No, this was about reclaiming his power, about confronting the lies that had kept him bound. The darkness hissed, angry and spiteful, as he pushed against it with the weight of his determination. "No more!" he screamed. "I am not afraid. I refuse to allow my past to dictate my future." The glow within him flared brighter, illuminating the darkness like dawn breaking through a long night. Shadows shrank away, whispering threats as they retreated. Yet the reflection of his self, his twisted replica, stood firm, its smirk unwavering. "You may think you've won, but the truth is not so easily defeated." Philip felt his pulse quicken again as memories started pouring in faster, almost suffocating. Each one represented choices not taken, words left unsaid, regrets pooling like traps waiting for his collapse. "You'll fall back into the dark," the figure taunted. "Never again," he roared, channeling every ounce of pain into defiance. The light within him surged, pulsing with his heartbeat, igniting flames that began consuming the shadows, but the woman pulled him closer, urgency etched into her expression. "The truth is here. But it's not just about you, Philip. We have to uncover the lies together." He looked into her eyes, their depths reflecting an understanding that traveled beyond mere words. The shadows clawed at him still, but now he saw them for what they were: an outer illusion. They were the projections of his innermost fears, mirrored by his own hesitations. Together he whispered, the notion striking deep. The darkness began to distort, flickering like an old film reel. Philip focused, channeling their combined energy, their intertwining resolve. "We want to be defined by this." The landscape contorted again, the sinister laughter morphing into a haunting echo that vibrated through his whole being. Just ahead, a fissure of pure light cracked open in the shadowy expanse, like a door inviting them into the unknown. "Step through," the woman urged, her eyes glued to the glimmering crack. "It's our chance." His pulse thundered in his ears as they raced toward the fissure, the shadows raging behind them. Just before reaching the light, Philip hesitated, the urgency of their escape clawing at the edges of his consciousness. "What will we find?" "Whatever the truth is, we'll face it together," she insisted, her grip unwavering. He inhaled deeply, sickness twisting in his gut, but resolute strength washed over him. "Together," he echoed, and with that, they plunged into the brilliant fissure. The moment they crossed the threshold, a wave of clarity enveloped him, shaking him to the core. He felt weightless, yet burdened. Memories swirled around him, but no longer tugging him down, they hovered like specters just out of reach, and then, silence. What awaited them in this brave new realm? Would the truths they unearthed forge them anew, or would they sink deeper into the chaos? As the silence grew heavy, the questions loomed larger. Were they truly ready for the revelations ahead? Or had they merely stepped into the shadow of a greater darkness? Philip felt a disorientation settle over him as he and the woman held their breath, suspended in the almost ethereal light that enveloped them. The silence was deafening, yet invigorating. There was an urge to break free, a hunger for answers dancing at the edges of their consciousness. Colors swirled around them, each hue a memory unshackled, fluttering like pages in a windstorm. Faces flickered in and out, a childhood friend, an old love, the mentors who had helped shape him. With each flash, a feeling surged through him, empowering yet terrifying. These were strands of his identity, each one a thread he thought he had buried beneath the weight of despair. "Where are we?" The woman's voice barely broke the breathless quiet, but it served as a wake-up call. "Some part of my mind," Philip whispered, drawn to the vibrancy surrounding them. "I think I know it's where I've hidden my fears." "Then we must confront them," she urged, her voice steady. "Face them together." A shadow flickered beside them, a remnant of the dark figure from before, lurking just outside their newfound sanctuary. It writhed like a serpent, twisting and curling, feeding off their uncertainty. "Do you see it?" Philip nodded toward the shadow, dread curling in his stomach. "Yes," she replied, tightening her grip on his hand. "But it's not real. It comes from within you. What happens if it gets to us?" His heart raced, dread flooding his veins. "It cannot reach us if we stay united," she said, her voice unyielding. "We'll use our light." Encouraged by her words, Philip inhaled deeply, feeling the warmth radiate from their joint connection. The flickering shadows hesitated, momentarily retreating, but they regained their resolve, creeping closer as Philip felt the weight of doubt clawing up his legs. "No." He pushed his chin up and straightened his spine, tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. "I don't want to go back. I can't let it win." In that fierce moment of determination, a powerful surge erupted from within him. A blazing light shot forth, illuminating the tangled darkness. The shadows shrieked, trying to pull back into their recesses, but Philip stood firm, emboldened by the woman at his side. "What do you want?" He shouted into the void, channeling his fear into raw power. "I've come too far to be afraid again." The figure, now more defined, loomed larger and more menacing. It whispered lies, shadows of long-buried shame and regret echoing back at him. "You think you're free? Look at your failures. They'll haunt you forever." Yet within him, the light swelled, fueled by their collective courage. "You are not my truth," he yelled, staring the figure down. "You're merely the reflection of what I chose not to become." The shadow writhed, the laughter transforming into a howling fury. The woman stepped forward, her resolve unwavering. "Together, Philip. Remember, our pasts don't define us." He dared to look into her eyes, and something shifted in him. Her faith ignited the flame inside him, a firestorm of resilience and hope. "Together." He echoed once more, and the light surged violently, blasting through the darkness. The scream that filled the air was almost musical, a chaotic cacophony blending with their light, shaking the air around them. The figure shrank back, disintegrating into dust. And suddenly, everything fluttered like leaves in a gust of wind, and the silence fell away, replaced by a soft, warm hum. But before they could grasp their victory, a new vision materialized, clearer than before, a flicker of a future unwritten, where shadows still waited to rise, and a storm brewed on the horizon. "Philip," she breathed, her eyes widening as they glimpsed a foreboding truth. "What be we unleashed?" As the new light pulsated, dimming and brightening in a rhythmic dance, they knew this was only the beginning. And a chilling question still hung in the air: what awaited them in this unveiled landscape, and would they have the strength to face it head-on? The vibrant light began to fade, and with it, the silken warmth enveloping them slipped into something far less comforting. The murmurs of the past faded into a distant echo, replaced by an uneasy rustling in the air, the sound of shadows shifting, awaiting their moment to rise. "What is happening?" Philip breathed, a sharp chill piercing through his newly reignited hope. He felt the woman's grip tightening, her pulse quickening. "We tread on unstable ground," she whispered, her eyes darting to the corners of their sanctuary. "We must be ready for whatever comes next." Philip felt the bile rising in his throat. Had they merely pushed one darkness away? With every beat of his heart, he sensed a new dread creeping closer, a sense of foreboding that coiled itself tightly around him. Colors started swirling again, but this time they took on a more sinister hue, a murky mixture of gray and sickening green. Memories began flooding back, not the sweet, innocent fragments of his childhood, but the raw, searing moments he had tried to forget. Fights with friends, failed opportunities, and despair that clawed at him when he was alone. "No!" Philip shouted, but the memories didn't listen. They wrapped around him, tightening their grip until he could hardly breathe. "Focus!" the woman urged, her voice a beacon cutting through the chaos. "Remember the light. We overcame once, we can do it again." He locked his gaze onto hers, shaking off the suffocating memories. For a second, he believed in her words, believed that their light could stave off whatever darkness loomed. But then a thunderous roar erupted from the depths of the shadows, slicing through the air with an unforgiving bite. "It's coming!" he cried, his muscles clenching in fear. The dark figure, the embodiment of anguish, reformed and towered above them, its eyes burning with malevolence. "You thought you sealed me away. You've only let me slip through the cracks. I'll consume you from the inside, leave you hollow." It hissed, its voice like nails scraping against metal. "Together!" she cried out, her voice shaking with unyielding courage. But even she faltered as the shadow lunged toward them, a black wave threatening to engulf their light. Philip drew in a swift breath of fire ignited in his chest. "You're wrong!" he shouted, the pulse of their connection surging through him. "You are not my master. You are a lie I refuse to believe." In that instant, he channeled everything he had, everything he was. He felt the warmth of their combined strength pool like molten gold, pouring forth into a pulse of brilliance between them. The light exploded from him, a radiant burst that lit up every dark corner of his mind. The shadow shrieked, but instead of retreating, it expanded, growing more intense, more chaotic. Philip could almost taste its rage, bitter, acrid. "You can't escape the truth," it roared, its sighs swelling with elemental fury. "You're bound to your failures. What if our failures are just the starting point of our strength?" The woman countered, stepping forward as she fanned the flames of hope. The moment her voice pierced through the din, Philip felt a realization: the shadows were only as powerful as the weight they were given. He could fight off the darkness, not with brute force, but with understanding. They didn't need to erase their past, they needed to embrace it. As the light flickered, radiating like a beacon, something shifted. The figure paused, its wrath wavering as if uncertain. "Philip!" a voice echoed in his mind, crashing against the walls of despair. "You have the power to rewrite your story." "Do I?" he murmured, his heart pounding, uncertainty intertwining with hope. "They're your choices, your life," the woman urged, her strength anchoring him. "Claim it. Claim your future." But just as he felt the tide of certainty turn in his favor, the darkness lunged forward. A jagged laugh exploded from its mouth, filled with derision and malice. "Do you really think this is over?" it taunted, its form twisting in preparation for a final assault. Philip tensed, ready to battle, but even as he squared his shoulders, a haunting thought crept in: what if the shadows were more than just remnants of his past? What if they held secrets he wasn't ready to face? As the shadow lunged, spreading its dark tendrils toward them, all he could think was what lay beyond this confrontation, and whether victory meant truly reclaiming what he thought he had lost. But then came a deafening crack, and energy pulsed through him, and darkness roared. "Philip!" the woman cried, her eyes wide with both fear and defiance, but the answer remained just out of reach. What awaited them after this final confrontation? What hidden truths lay buried within that they might uncover if they survived? The ground trembled beneath Philip's feet as the shadow unleashed a tempest of rage, the echo of its laughter lingering in the air like a bitter aftertaste. The darkness clawed at him, grasping for the very essence of his being. He could feel it seeping into the recesses of his mind, feeding on his fears and doubts. "Stand firm!" the woman shouted, the flicker of the light casting dancing shadows on her determined face. "We have more power than this." Philip looked at her, finding the resolve he needed in her fierce gaze. He summoned the memories of lost friends and stolen opportunities, not as burdens but as stepping stones. Each misstep became a fragment of strength. "We hold the light," he declared, voice breaking through the chaos. The golden warmth surged again, spiraling between them, pushing the shadows back for a fleeting moment, but the darkness writhed and hissed, its form twisting and warping with a grotesque hunger. "You think you can defy me? You are nothing without your failures. I am your truth." The weight of its words pressed heavily on Philip's chest, a suffocating reminder of the vulnerabilities he fought hard to bury. "No!" he shouted, his voice raw with defiance. "You are not my truth. I am more than my past." The shadows recoiled slightly, as if shaken. It was a chink in the darkness he needed to exploit. "Simon!" he cried to the woman. "Let us show this thing what we're made of." With a fierce nod, they joined hands, creating an unbreakable tether. They channeled their combined energy, thoughts racing in unison, memories melding into a spectacular tapestry of resilience. Secrets, hopes, and dreams, that was the key. They were more than the shadows that sought to pull them under. "There's power in our scars," she whispered. "In every loss, in every battle. Let us set them free." The light that burst forth was blinding, shimmering like molten silver. The tendrils of the shadow flickered, disoriented by the brilliance. Philip took a step forward, heart thrumming. "You can't keep us captive. We're not afraid of you anymore." The shadow shivered, its form flickering like a dying flame. It felt their resolve, knew the stakes were shifting. "You think you can rewrite your story?" It jeered, but its voice held a tremor now. "Yes," Philip replied, conviction seeping into every syllable. "We're the authors, not you." As the words left his lips, a shockwave rippled through the ground, sending cracks sprawling in all directions. The space around them distorted, light mingling with darkness in an ethereal dance. The shadow, once towering and menacing, began to dissipate, torn apart by the luminosity they wielded. "Don't stop," the woman urged, her eyes radiating fierce conviction. "Keep holding on." Just as they felt the tide turn completely in their favor, a deafening scream erupted from the darkness, an echoing wail that rattled the very core of Philip's being. The shadow surged back, more ferocious than before. "You think you've won? I will not be forgotten." Panic struck Philip like a bolt of ice. Just as victory seemed within reach, the darkness morphed into grotesque shapes, whispering his greatest regrets into his ears, filling him once more with doubt. "Don't listen," the woman shouted, her voice breaking through the clamor. "Focus on the light." But the shadows twisted and turned, revealing visions of despair, of loved ones lost and journeys never taken. Philip faltered, the weight of regret almost suffocating. "No," he gasped, struggling to breathe, grappling with the overwhelming flood threatening to pull him under. Suddenly, from deep within, a low, melodic hum began to take shape, a resonance of strength that shook through the darkness. It was familiar, echoing a truth that had been hidden for far too long. "Philip," the woman breathed, her eyes widening. "Listen. It's the voice of your heart. It's always been there." Light flickered in his chest, pulsing with recognition. "I am not my past. I embrace every piece, even the pain." With newfound determination, they steadied themselves, refusing to let the darkness define them. The tenacity rose within them, an unstoppable force. As the shadow lunged again, a crack reverberated through the sanctuary, a deafening sound signaling the climax of their struggle. All that hung in the balance teetered, ready to plunge into chaos or rise into clarity, but then the ground quaked wildly, the air thickening, and everything seemed to spiral into a whirlpool of light and dark. The woman's frantic gaze met Philip's. What if it takes more than just facing the darkness? What if the truth hides something we never expected? Her words hung in the air as the world around them began to collapse into an abyss, leaving only uncertainty looming over their fate. What darker truths lay waiting for them, veiled in the chaos? And would they emerge stronger, or would their fight define their final moments? The storm raged, shadows swirling and churning as Philip and the woman clung to each other, hearts pounding in response to the chaos. They leaned into their bond, finding comfort in one another. "We're here together," she whispered, her voice steady amid the cacophony. Together. The shadow, shimmering with rage, prowled closer, its laugh like the crack of thunder. "Foolish mortals. You think your bond can withstand the weight of your own truths? They are the very darkness you fear." "No." Philip shouted, defiance rising once more. "You don't own us. We own our stories." He felt the light shimmering inside him, flickering like a candle against the howling wind. The darkness recoiled, if only slightly, and he seized the moment. "We are shaped by our struggles, every scar, every heartache. They do not break us, they forge us." The shadow shrieked, flickering as if uncertain. "You cannot run." It taunted, "You are rooted in your failures." But the woman squeezed his hand tighter. "Not failures, lessons. We've learned from our struggles. We chose to rise." Philip inhaled deeply, letting the warmth wash over him. "We will not run anymore," he declared, the truth building within him. He stepped forward, taking a brave stance against the looming shadow. "Let it come. We have faced our fears before, and here we stand united." As they stood their ground, the darkness surged towards them, its tendrils seeming to reach for their very souls. Philip and the woman held on tighter, a united front against the tempest. "Bring it on!" Philip roared, summoning the strength of every fear he had ever faced. With an eruption of light, their connection ignited, illuminating the darkness, revealing its grotesque form to be nothing more than a mirage, a product of their own doubts. The laughter of the shadow turned into a retreat, hissing in frustration. "You think you've won?" The shadow snarled, its voice wavering. "I am the echoes of every fear, every regret. You cannot escape." Philip squared his shoulders. "We are not escaping, we are confronting." With a determined thrust, he charged at the darkness. A surge of light blasted forth from his heart, fearless and bright. The blinding light washed over the shadow, illuminating its limitations. It quaked, the harmonic pulse of vulnerability shattering its grasp. "It's time to take back the narrative," he shouted, knowing this was their moment. Together, their light expanded, forcing open the darkness, unraveling the lies that had imprisoned him for far too long. The shadow screamed, a sound that echoed with every haunted memory. "No. I will not be forgotten." With a final push, Philip harnessed every ounce of courage and love he had ever known. "You are merely a chapter in my story." As the light surged, a white-hot explosion rippled through the chaos, sending tremors pulsing outward. The shadow disintegrated, its remnant whispers fading into the night, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. The storm quieted, and the golden light enveloped them like a warm embrace. They stood together on solid ground, hearts racing in the tranquil aftermath. "What just happened?" the woman asked, breathless and wide-eyed. Philip looked around as clarity washed over them, the horizon aflame with the brilliance of dawn breaking through the dark. "We faced it," he murmured. "And we won." But beyond that horizon, shadows still trailed, remnants of darkness lurking on the edges. "We must be vigilant," she cautioned, her tone serious. "This is only the beginning, right?" "Yes," he agreed, realization dawning. "But now we know the past doesn't define us. It's a part of who we are, but not who we'll always be. We decide our next steps. With hope rekindling in their chests, they turned to walk into the light, holding on to one another, ready for the journey ahead. They wouldn't allow fear to taint their future. They had emerged stronger, bound not by shadows, but by the resilience they'd unearthed. And they would confront whatever awaited them, a call to reclaim their story, armed with the unwavering truth. But as they stepped forward, a whisper threaded through the air, an echo of the Sentinel's words from the desert. The darkness wears many faces. They knew their journey was far from over. They left the desert behind, but the lessons learned would be carried in their hearts. Together, they would face tomorrow, step by bold step, hand in hand. They embraced the dawn, each ray of light a reminder. They were the authors, not just of their story, but of an epic destined to unfold. They had conquered the darkness, but the true adventure lay at their feet. Now, as they walked into the brilliance of an unwritten tomorrow, a question lingered in the air: what other truths awaited them in the bright labyrinth of life? Only time would tell. And now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Help spread the word and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your voice matters in this community. Let us connect.